Good morning, Sandy.
Morning. How you doing?
Good. So, last time we talked, you said that confidence isn't built by yelling at yourself in a mirror. It's built through reps, reflection, and recovery, and that thing stuck with me.
Well, the first thing I would say is that from a confidence standpoint, the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we interact with ourselves, I tell a lot of the clients that I work with, if you wouldn't say it to somebody else, you can't say it to yourself. So the negative self-talk and kind of the downplay is very important. I think that kind of sets the scene. But confidence really is kind of built through belief. I think one of the misconceptions is that we're always trying to build confidence or be confident. And the easiest way to do that is to kind of tap into the belief side. If you thought about a tree outside, what you see above ground, that's confidence. What you don't see below ground, that's belief. So in that example, right, no roots, no tree, no belief, no confidence. So it really starts on the belief side, tapping into past successes or times when you have done it, whatever the it is. And normally the end result of that is a feeling of confidence.
Yeah. And today we're exploring the true reasons why some athletes excel under pressure while others break down. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Let's get into it.
Here we go.
The following conversation is with Sandy Cohan, mindset architect and creator of the Mental Edge Blueprint. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensala. Today, we explore the mental performance, pressure, and purpose, uncovering genuine stories and insights that really matter. To support our show, please check the episode description. Sandy, welcome to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. Great to have you here.
Hey. Yeah, so nice to be here. Good afternoon to you, I would say. Good morning to me. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, great. You've experienced both sides of the game, player and a coach. But what sets your work apart is how you challenge the mental model of sports. And I want to start right there. When did you, Sandy, realize that athletes don't just need another drill, they need a different way of thinking?
I think it was after my career was over. Sadly, I wish it was earlier on. It was a different time back then. But I spent a lot of time in the professional skill development business for hockey players, a lot at the high level, pros and certainly high level college. And what I started noticing was that the ones who made it, and when I say it, I'm really just talking about maximizing potential. They weren't necessarily the most skilled, right? At that level, everybody has skill. Everybody can do fill in the blank. So what was the separator? And what really became apparent is those who are wired to be a little bit grittier, who really kind of have more of a handle on the focus part and really the mindset in total, those were the ones you could rely on. Those were the ones that at the end, they were still there. So I spent a tremendous amount of time kind of honing this and really kind of crafting it specifically to very, very high caliber athletes. And really what I started to notice was there was no foundation. Again, it was a different time when you and I were younger. It was very much a just get tough and deal with it. But that really isn't the case. Mindset, what I do, I kind of liken it to the foundation of the building. So it really doesn't matter what you're trying to stack on top of that. If the foundation of the building is not strong, everything else just crumbles. So it was probably, maybe 12-ish years ago. I was interacting with a lot of pros that would come to me and say, I don't know if something's wrong, but something doesn't feel right. I'm just not maximizing what I think I can do. And in 99% of those circumstances, it had nothing to do with skill. It was all what was going on between the ears.
Yeah, yeah. And throughout your, I would say, fast-paced career, mainly hockey, because it's such a demanding sport, when did you feel the shift from performance to purpose?
I love that question. Probably when I was in college. I played pretty high level junior and high school hockey, but it probably wasn't until I got into college where I truly understood how important it was to be purposeful and intentional in your preparation. All aspects of it, not just taking care of your body and all of that, but really being purposeful on a daily basis, of really kind of working through where your focus was. How were you thinking? How were you processing? So it was probably in college. I wish that it was earlier. Maybe I would have ended up extending the career a little bit, but that's probably when it started for me, and I just went all in on it. I absolutely love every aspect of trying to help a younger person really develop those foundational skills. For me, much of what I do, I would say that hockey is probably the vehicle, but I'm really in the help build better human being business, first and foremost.
Yeah. And on that, looking back, Sandy, how did hockey shape your philosophy on clarity and leadership?
It's a very team oriented sport, obviously, and when you start kind of playing at the higher levels, you're really relying on the person to the left of you and to the right of you to just find a way, right? Like everyone kind of has to pull their weight. And that accountability piece really became very, very relevant for me. And I think when you kind of get into environments where there are a whole bunch of high performers, where you can kind of share some of the things that maybe as athletes we thought was a little bit weird or obsessive qualities about us, when you kind of get in that environment and everybody is dialed like that, it's a pretty empowering thing. And I think I learned early that leadership, how you're interacting with others, how you're listening, how you're communicating, that is everything. If you look at any team who is successful, there's some common DNA that's shared by those teams, and I would say at the heart of it is always communication.
Yeah, yeah. And on that, how do you define leadership?
That's a good question. I think probably at its core, it's setting the pace, setting the tone. Some leaders are very vocal, right? Some kind of do it with action, but you have to find a way to meet the people where they are. Sometimes you're leading, from the front, you're dragging everybody up the mountain, and sometimes you're in the back pushing them up the mountain. But it's really finding a way to connect with people where they are, because what drives some might not drive others. What inspires some might not inspire others. But I think leaders have to be aware, and they have to be able to determine, how do I help get the most out of that individual to maximize the group? Every piece matters, but that is a huge one. The leadership component is huge, especially in youth sports. I mean, I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Let's shift gear and talk about flip the switch. What is it, and what problem does it solve?
Yep. So I think any athlete or performer or anything, a doctor, a CEO, when it's time to perform, there has to be almost like a line of demarcation where we are not so much turning off the daytime version of us or the family version of us or the husband or the wife part of us, but it's turning on compete mode, turning on the focus element. So the flipping the switch as it relates to so many of the athletes that I work with, at some point, you got to flip that switch and turn on the compete mode version of yourself. And that is, for some, it's, on the car ride there. For some, it's in the locker room. It's different for everybody. But at some point, there has to be literally like a switch that gets flipped when focus takes over, intentionality, purposeful mindset takes over. And I think the biggest challenge for so many people is that they think the responsibility is to turn off daytime version, turn off the drama of your family or something that maybe happened earlier in the day. When at the heart of it, it's not about turning anything off. It's about turning something on. And what I do is help people also determine what is it that should be turned on, and then remaining in character until it is time to either the game ends or the competition ends or the horn goes, but it's staying at that level until it is time to switch it off.
Yeah. Sandy, walk us through the 7 pillars of the mental edge blueprint.
So I've never been one, for me personally, to spend too much time with the phrase mental performance or mental anything, right? I use the word mindset, and I do that purposefully because I think
when it comes to, sorry to cut you, Sandy, it comes to mental resilience that we hear quite often.
Yeah, well, we get to the same place, but I try to empower people that I come at it through the concept of mindset. Sometimes the mental word, I think, suggests to people that they are broken or something is wrong. And that is 180 degrees away from what I do. So I always say the word mindset, which I think for some is kind of interchangeable. But the 7 pillars, you have belief, attitude, grit, focus, emotional control, discipline, self-awareness. Those big 7, the people who have mindset, the high performers that can really engage, they are able to control and manage those 7 key fundamentals. It literally is, it's very, very contained, but everything that I do, whether it's group work or teamwork or individual one-on-one coaching, is rooted in those 7 principles.
Yeah. And talking about those high performers, where do they most stumble in this framework?
I think the big misunderstanding is what the word focus means. I think within that frame, within those big 7, the 2 keys where it all starts is the ability to focus and kind of what the grit level is, the drive. Those are the 2. And for the older athletes, they aren't so much in the what category, they're in the how do you tap into it. But most of the high performers, I think they are focused. I think they think that they are trying to hone in, but I would classify them more like in the awareness category, right? Broad awareness versus deep focus, those are 2 different things. Awareness, I would liken that to like you looking out a window. Oh, there's a bird, there's my neighbor, there's a car. Like, that's awareness. That's not focus. Focus would be like looking into a mirror. So most high performers, some of their challenges might come out in some of the other places, how they view themselves, where their belief and confidence are, but it really starts with an inability to focus.
Yeah, yeah. And usually all this, I hear you when you say you don't want to pinpoint about mental toughness, mental issues and stuff like that. But then in our world, in the sports industry, at the elite level or any level, we are always under pressure, and could be to perform within a team, or doesn't matter if it's a team sport or an individual sport. What kind of mindset tools that truly work when you are under pressure?
Yeah, so mental performance, mental toughness, those are all words and phrases that I use. I think those are outcomes. My approach, though, is always from a starting standpoint. I suggest that everything that I do is really offensive. A lot of times I think people tap into these tools when or if something goes wrong. Right? Everyone kind of is scrambling. Something's happened. This is the time when I'm going to kind of dig in. And my approach has always been we should front load it. That what if we empowered these people to have the tools to be able to tap into belief whenever they needed, focus, control their emotions, right? Act with emotion, not because of emotion, how they view themselves. So I do use those words, but I think the biggest thing normally when I start is helping players or athletes even identify what does success look like. It's different for everybody, but so many, even the highest high performers, if you say to them, how'd you play? Good, not good. My next question is always, well, what does good mean? I don't know that for you, but let's define it. And for a lot of people, the challenge starts right there, that they are evaluating themselves or trying to without even having a target. So it's like you wouldn't get in your car and just start randomly driving, right? Like you'd have a destination. So a lot of it is helping them identify who they are, what drives them, what are their superpowers, what are their unique skills, and really kind of targeting using those skills. What does success even mean? Because once we can target it, we can then chase it, we can celebrate it, we can track it, we can see if we're off course. But I always start there and have athletes really try and determine what we need to get clarity. There's great comfort in clarity.
Yeah. I mean, during my coaching career, sometimes when I feel the athletes they feel off, and we keep asking them, hey, I want you here 100%, not 90%. We do it without thinking. We say, okay, something is off here. Let's try to find out. As a coach, this is based on experience mainly. It's not something we studied or we it's based on experience. So we try to, in a very short period of time, because the clock is ticking, we try to find out or figure out or try to have this kind of diagonals, what's going on with this person, and based on that, we take a decision either to keep them on the bench or send them away, or But in your case, Sandy, how do you diagnose something like that something is off with a particular athlete?
It's a lot of listening, it's a lot of talking, but most higher performers, and this is one of the things I think that makes them actually high performers. It's a common DNA trait, but they're very outcome focused. And I understand why, right? But they see everything as win, lose, did we score or not score, black, white, good, bad, because they want immediate feedback, and we are all judged by results. I'm not saying that results don't matter, but I think the most important thing, though, is really identifying those actions and behaviors that when and if you do them, the only outcome is going to be the outcome that you want. So again, there's great power in the clarity, the plan, but to truly lock into focus, we need to be concerned with what are the actions and behaviors, what are our controllables versus what are those things we can impact, right? Those are two totally different things. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of gray area for higher performers that they kind of confuse those things that they can actually control with those things that they can impact. The impact areas, we can impact a shift, we can impact a play, we can impact a minute, but you can't control wins or losses. You can impact it. So a lot of it is helping players understand that the irony is that if their focus is on their controllables, that delivers the best version of themselves, gives them the best opportunities to have positive impact.
Yeah. Let's talk about burnout. We coaches, quite often, we catch that problem when it occurs and it's too late. How do you identify an athlete at risk of burnout?
This has changed a lot since I think when you and I were younger, and I think it's changed for the good. I'm sure we could have some stories about coaches we've had in the past. Some of them are probably in jail right now for the way they were doing stuff. But
it was effective.
Yeah, that's right. But the common day athlete is different. Probably more skilled, probably bigger, faster, stronger. But the headspace, it's not their fault. It's not as strong as I think ours was. Maybe it was the environment that we grew up in. Things were just different. Information wasn't as easily accessible. But But burnout is a big one, and I think a lot of times some of the things that pop up, big mood swings, lack of smiles and enjoyment and passion for the activity or the sport. It typically pops out in performance, but there's so many stats right now. It's almost like looking at someone's medical chart when you really kind of start to see big dips or big swings in stats. That's the time to start peeling back the layers, probably not from a performance standpoint, but from a mindset standpoint or a mental standpoint. How is that person bouncing back? Are they bouncing back? So it's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of empowerment. It's a lot of, I think, teaching athletes how to talk, how to communicate feelings, not because they're weak, but because they're going to be stronger with more tools in the toolbox. But burnout is a big one, especially at the younger ages. You see it a lot. And parents I know are torn. They want what's best for their child. They want them to specialize in multiple activities, and there aren't enough hours in the day. But at the end of the day, even for professionals, it has to be fun. If it's not fun, if there isn't a love of doing it, that doesn't mean that it's easy. But when you start to see that love for competition or love for development or achievement go away, that's a big sign.
Yeah. And what's your process for, let's say, the tool that you use to help athletes to reset that kind of confidence?
A lot of it is getting back to basics. I mean, it sounds very, very simple, but keeping it simple. So much of the challenges that pop up that when you put them through the system, they come out the other side as burnout, is just kind of getting away from believing in yourself, identifying what is important, practicing on controlling your controllables, practicing emotional control, responses, routines and habits are a big one. So we always try and insulate, I think, athletes with as many successful habits as they can come up with, because habits move to that discipline place, I think that a lot of the athletes that are challenged with burnout are depending on motivation, and motivation fades, discipline builds.
Yeah. I'm thinking about looking for motivation. Is it more affirmation from their peer, from let's say the outside, or?
Yeah, I think it depends on the level of player. It's been my experience, and some of that comes with maturity, but self-belief, negative self-talk, positive self-talk, really kind of being aware of actions and what should be the focus. I think a lot of those people tend not to be in the world of self-doubt. They tend to be a little bit more comfortable in not always feeling judged, so that they can perform, they act, they feel lighter. So I think a lot of the self-doubt comes from internal processing of what we think others are thinking and saying about us. And when that starts to grow, that's a dangerous place to be for an athlete.
And how do you shield athletes to basically, how I say, shield themselves from this kind of voices?
Well, a lot of them, we always kind of remind, maybe you should stay away from the social media and what other people are saying. There's a whole element of the media, which is, their business is to make stories. But that's really, I think, where the teamwork and the connection comes into play, and really providing environments that are very, very positive, not that are fake. There's nothing wrong with giving feedback. Hey, this was not good. This needs to be better. But, coaches have to coach, right? It's not an easy thing. It's gone are the days where it's just the loudest voice in the room is what moves the masses, right? Like, that's not coaching anymore. That's younger people are going to listen because you're an adult, they're a kid. That's not coaching. That's almost intimidation. But it's a very, very real thing. So it's keeping them focused. It's a lot less on what noise they should avoid, and kind of reinforcing the noises that they should welcome. And that really is the key to so much of, I think, performance. You don't have to spend any time trying to shut off the things that you don't want. We want the focus to be, what is it that we do want, right? Because the brain doesn't process like that, right? And the easiest example is if I say to you, don't think about an elephant, like, you're thinking about an elephant. Everybody does. That's the same way the brain processes, right? So don't mess up. Don't be nervous. Don't turn the puck over. Don't turn the ball over, right? So we're almost taking ourselves to that negative and then trying to clutch and claw out, versus let's just turn 180 degrees and focus on what let's keep the good stuff in rather than trying to keep the bad stuff out.
Yeah. On the topic of burnout, can you share a story or two of a comeback that you're especially proud of?
I wish that it was about me, but it's not. But it's probably five, right? Yeah, right before we came down here, I was working with an athlete. She's a professional hockey player. She was on the Olympic team at the time, and a little bit older, but still a great player, very, very competitive, and was just kind of exhausted with the grind. She wasn't playing regular seasons, so much of her training and development was on her, right? It wasn't like she could go play in games and stuff like that. And she really got to a pretty dark place because there weren't, it was just like practice all the time, right? It didn't seem like there was a payoff. And we spent a lot of time kind of realigning what are the goals what are the success points? What's reality? And she came up with the idea that, she loved being at the rink. And I said, well, have you ever thought about like coaching or doing clinics, whether it's young girls or whoever it is, right? Just be involved in the sport from another perspective. And she started doing that, and she like hit a whole nother gear. It was kind of a rejuvenation for her. It was almost a step back from not the sport, not the desire to continue to be successful, but what she thought was the pressure. She took all of that energy and put it into helping other people foster their love for the sport. And I remember seeing her at the last Olympics. She had a really good showing, and it was a very moving thing for me because I know how hard she fought. I know how hard she kind of clawed back. And it would have been very easy to just walk away. And no harm, no foul. It wouldn't have taken away from anything that she had accomplished up until that point. But she didn't do that. She took another approach and grinded and made today about today and kept showing up, kept winning the next minute. And from that, she probably had like the best showing of her career, and she was one of the oldest players in the Olympics.
Wow, that's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah. It was great. Yeah. It was great.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah. What a lovely story. Thanks for sharing, Sandy.
Sure.
What do parents often get wrong about supporting their kids?
I love this question. I love this question so much that I actually wrote a book about it. I think the biggest challenge is, parents are well-intended. We all want what's best for our kids. But there's a fine line between wanting what's best for your kids and giving them the space to fall down, because we should not be always worrying about preventing them from falling down. We should be focused on having them have the tools to know how to get back up. But I think a lot of parents need to remember that they are not defined by their child's athletic endeavors. And I understand it's very, very hard. But, kids want parents. They don't want another coach in the car on the way home. They know if they performed well or if they didn't. And they want the unconditional love more than anything. That doesn't mean that these parents don't give them that. But I think parents have to remember that the goal is to build the human being that can show up when the lights go off for sports, right? Because it happens to all of us, right? Like, how is that person going to walk into a boardroom or whatever their passions might be? So I think at the core, we spend a lot of time trying to help parents remember that your child wants a parent first and foremost. They want you to be proud of them. I think parents should have expectations. I think that they should, it's okay to make winning matter. I think it does matter. I just think sometimes they need some reminders on what are the important elements, what should be celebrated, and that should be attitude, grit, focus, being a good teammate. I'm not saying that results don't matter. I'm not saying everyone should get trophies if they don't win. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think the best way to get there is to help parents understand that they don't need to block the bruise that helps build the backbone, but they're well intended. I know
they are. Yeah, they are. I think parents quite often they look at the short-term result outcome rather than long-term, and because like athletes, kids, they face different type of pressure at school, outside with their friends, at the club, or whatever sports they're playing. Parents face a different type of pressure within the community. There is an investment aspect as well if they invested time and money. So they look at it, but without thinking, I must say, Sandy, I've spoken to so many parents. Indirectly, they are somewhere in their head, there is this ROI
Yes.
notion about, hey, I spent so much time, there is so much sweat, so much tears, money. Somehow we need to see some return, They do it with love, They do it with love and stuff like that. But quite often it's
with you said it's so perfectly, the ROI aspect of it. A lot of times I ask parents, the advantage is because I'm kind of going through the child and kind of giving the parents some feedback. Maybe it was unsolicited, but helping steer the environment, I think, is a very healthy thing. Asking them why their child is involved in sports. What is it? Not because the chances of them being a professional are low. I hope that they achieve all that they want to, but getting back to what really is important, I think sometimes it humbles parents, but yes, they are always, most times there's a lot of, I'm working all week, we're in the car all weekend, we're driving here, we're driving there, right? And I gently say, there's a lot of I statements there. I understand it's a sacrifice, there's no doubt, but why is your child playing soccer or football or hockey or whatever they're doing? Like what are we really trying to build here? Are we trying to build what do you want your legacy to be for your child? But I hear that all the time.
Yeah. And in that case, what role should parents actually play in youth development? Or what kind of message would you give parents?
I tell parents, I normally start with this, that their job, they really need to help instill the values, what is important. It's not what isn't important, but something has to be the most important. The priority line can't be horizontal, right? It has to be vertical. So whatever kind of comes at that top, whether it's integrity, character, effort, whatever it is, that's number one. I think a commitment to not quitting is a big one. Sometimes I feel like when younger players have challenges or adversity, parents want to kind of pull the plug real quick so the kid doesn't experience any pain. I understand every situation is different, but I think there's a lot of growth in that discomfort. I think kids need to learn how to be comfortable when things are uncomfortable. So I think parents, once they establish those baselines, I really think that they need to live by them, right? Because you can't tell your child that you really celebrate effort and did they have fun? Was it a good experience? And then get in the car at the end of the competition and like berate them for not performing, right? The kid does not understand that. So I think it's providing an environment where the child can learn, where they feel okay to vent. I'm okay with venting, but I like when parents then start steering or reframing conversations, right? Not biting on what the perceived problem may or may not have been, but it's very much a now what moment. I hear you, son or daughter. What do you think the next move is? That it's a 2-second reframe, but it gets the child has expressed it, they've said their discomfort or whatever it is, and they are now into problem solving mode. And that I think is it's hard for parents, but there has to be a lot of reframing. What now? If we didn't like that, how do you think we can make it better? It's helping the child learn that the grind over here leads to the wins over there, and that connection has to be there.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's harder when you're dealing with preteen or teenagers, where they are that close to pull the plug.
Yep.
Yeah. Why is the ride home after a game so dangerous? You and I, we spoke about this during our intro chat.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of parents internalize what happened as a reflection on them. And if that's where you start the conversation, it's, I think, going to be very challenging to help do those things, steer the behavior of the child, reframe situations, get them into kind of that now what action mindset. So that's typically the time when a child wants the parent first and foremost. They don't want an evaluator. They don't want a coach. They don't want someone making them feel better or worse. I'm not saying we should sugarcoat things, but I think that's when you got to give it space a little bit. And you got to let the situation breathe a little bit. And kids are kids. They're resilient. They'll bounce back. And the parent doesn't always have to bring up the situation. The child will bring up the situation eventually. Maybe it's an hour later. Maybe it's after you get home. But that's really a pivotal point because younger people aren't great at acting with emotion. They're acting because of emotion. And I don't think that parents should engage in that. I don't think it's helpful.
I've been in those kind of situations quite often with my boys, and I can tell you there is only one thing that works, is to stay quiet, not to say a word.
Yep.
You know, and it works. It works all the time because when you're quiet, they ask themselves, something is not right here. Stay cool, stay quiet, behave normally, and it's like. You develop this kind of magnet effect. They come to you.
That's right.
And it works.
Right.
It is hard to stay quiet, you know.
And it's not just some parents say that, you know, they feel like they did a good job at staying quiet, but then when they say something, it's just like nuclear, right? Like that's the wrong thing to say. So yeah, what you said is exactly right. That look, my dad was he was a standards guy, and he certainly made it known. My mom was in the mental health field. She was a therapist, so the car rides home were very, very different. And my mom was an expert at it. Like a slower cadence, calmer voice, quiet, very kind of, you know, what are we doing the rest of the day, that sort of stuff. And inherently, I would be like, you know what's really bothering me, you know? And then my dad was like, you know, radio off, like, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, just two different ways. But my mom nailed it.
Yeah. And it gets more heated around the table, you know, during dinner times. Yeah. It gets more heated because... And like you said earlier, when in the heat of the moment, words flies back and forth, and quite often you cannot take it back. You know, even if well-meaning, you know. So there is no silver bullet.
I agree. I try to live by this also. You can always say more. Just like you said, you can always say more, but you once it's out of the tube, you can't put the toothpaste back in. So that's why I think that you have to kind of stick to your guns and really remember what your role is. Why is the child involved in sports? And you can be you can hold the line on the things that matter most. You gotta. Parents really have to kind of practice this. There's no book on how to do it. You know, like
have you find yourself, Sandy, coaching parents before the kids?
Yes.
Can you share?
So that's what I said earlier, though. I didn't know this when I first started. When I was working with younger players, which I actually love doing right now.
When you say young players, what age category?
Yep. For the stuff that I do, probably 12 and up. We do stuff for big organizations, a little bit younger, but it's not one-on-one. It's more, for the masses. But what I do after I work with anybody is, there's a summary at the end. There's my notes, what we talk about, points to kind of work on and focus on. And I learned early on that that's beneficial when it goes to the parents, because then everybody starts using the same language, right? And we start bookending. It's my way to talk to the parents sometimes without talking to the parents. But it starts at home. And I think for the younger people, sometimes they have made some of their best changes have been when the environment changes a little bit. Maybe they were perceiving things that weren't real, maybe. But I think parents can always use the reminder that they are always watching, they are always listening, they are always internalizing, right or wrong. And they pick up on stuff,
Yeah.
They remember.
Yeah. For our audience, can you share some common mistakes parents they usually do, even with a good intention, even when they mean well with their kids?
Language is a big one. So sometimes either talking down about a coach or another player, very, very detrimental. I think that I don't think there are really kind of any safe spaces. Your child might not repeat it, but they certainly heard it, and they heard you talking about someone else or something else, not in the greatest way. So that's a big one. I also think sometimes parents fall into the trap of comparing their kids to others. Little Joey is doing this, and this, or little Sally has this many points, and that's, again, well-intended. You're trying to kind of build them up, but that's not super helpful to a younger person. So I think avoiding those two pitfalls, if you had to pin me down to come up with two, I would say those are two big ones.
What should today's coaches, we were talking earlier about coaching, old style and in today's context, what coaches should understand about athlete psychology?
That at their core, younger athletes, but even older, like they want to do well. They want to succeed. They want information. They want, they don't always want just the what. They welcome the how. They want to understand the environment. So like my biggest pet peeve, even at very high levels, would be a coach at some sort of tryout or selection event, and they're not communicating the types of players or athletes that they're looking for, right? Because then that player is sitting on the other side of that thinking, okay, well, should I be selfish today and just no passing and just dominate? Should I be really, really physical? Like helping players thrive in the environment. Like what should the environment be? Where are the guardrails? They'll still be able to be athletes and competitors within those guardrails. But I think coaches, the more times they can establish those boundaries, we want this, we like this, we don't love this, that's not okay. Players can navigate through that and have some creativity there. But I think more information is always important. And dealing in standards, not expectations, standards. Those are two different things. And I think sometimes coaches, we fall into it. We turn the lights on and think everybody's ready to go. That's not always the case. Even for pros, sometimes, they need a reminder as to what we're doing. So information, I think, is a huge one.
And on that, in the US, if you compare various sports, do you see some particular sports excelling and doing better in terms of information, education, boosting awareness, training, or it's purely individual to each coach? From grassroots all the way to
yeah. I hate to say it, but I think those sports that tend to be maybe a little bit more white collar seem to have it figured out a little bit more, where parents have the income, families have the income to do the training, or maybe the sport is very, very expensive. I know sports are very, very expensive.
Tennis, golf.
There you go. Yep. Because I think that the deliverers of that product, the sports entities or organizations, realize that they need to provide more value because the parents tend to be a more critical buyer. And I wish it wasn't like that. But a lot of the times in the world that I'm in, I live really heavily in one of those worlds, in the ice hockey world. But every single individual, every single athlete, the things that I outlined that are those keys to success, those are life skills. Those should be taught and developed as soon as kids are playing sports. Their belief, their attitude, their grit, it doesn't have to be as complex as it might be for a professional athlete, but those standards, those elements, that roadmap has to be there. But the big thing in the States is there's a really gray area between developmental programs and participatory programs. And I think everybody wants development. Parents want their players to have practices and clinics and the great coaches. And some of the governing bodies of many of the sports are really trying to push a participatory model where, we're trying to bring up the masses. And there's always kind of conflict there because little Sally is just there for an activity. Maybe little Johnny wants to be a professional, right? And those families come together and there's different things. But I think every one of the governing bodies, every sport, this has to be relevant. The athletes will be better. The cultures will be better. The end product will be better. The talent will be better. So I wish it wasn't the case, but I think in the U.S. it kind of follows the socioeconomics a little bit more than probably it should.
Yeah. You explained earlier about your flow, mindset, perspective, belief, and performance. What part of belief is the hardest to teach and why?
I think it's the trust. So most athletes don't have what I would call a highlight reel, a mental highlight reel, 4 or 5 plays or instances. Maybe it was a goal they scored, a play they stopped, where it was the thing. Everybody saw it. The crowd went wild. Their teammates mobbed them. Most players don't tap into moments like that. That's not their ground zero. So when I ask an athlete that question, and if I use hockey as an example, I say, tell me, you probably have a play that you made last year. Maybe it was a goal or an assist where your family was there, the crowd went wild, your coaches loved it, your teammates were mobbing you, right? And I know that they have thought about that moment because they immediately start smiling, right? And I say, you can probably remember the rink where you were, right? You can probably remember which side of the ice you were on. You can probably remember what color jerseys you they remember it in such detail. And they say, yeah, I know it. And then my next question is well, what do you feel right now? And all of them in some form or another are energized. I'm ready to go. I feel great. And I say, well, do you know what that feeling is called? That feeling is called confidence. But not because you set out to be confident, because we tapped into a success, lived in it, sensed it, felt it, smelled it, heard it, saw it, touched it, brought it forward, And in most cases, that takes 10 seconds. So I think that, mindset shapes perspective. Perspective builds belief. Belief fuels confidence. Confidence enhances performance. Most times, most athletes at all levels, they kind of get off course with the belief part.
Right.
If they don't believe because it's real, remembering who they are, not trying to convince themselves of who they want to be, but reminding themselves of who they are. Those are very different things. So we spend a lot of time on belief. That's a big one.
Sandy, can faith play a big role in terms of boosting the belief or no?
Faith?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really more about clear mindset, being able to tap into good, honest, fact-based memories and helping people understand that thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts aren't facts. We're all guilty of this, but just because you think it doesn't mean it's going to happen, that it did happen, that it might happen, that that person is saying this about you. So I always encourage people, whatever you have to do to deal in facts, just deal in facts, right? But before you go down the rabbit hole, are there any facts to support that thought? I don't know if there are or aren't, but so yeah, I think I think faith is very, very important because it's authentic for many, many people. It's real and it's clear-minded. So I think that's a big one.
Yeah. I agree with that. Let's talk about your sessions on stage, and you're quite active there. What do your keynote audiences respond to the most?
They like a lot of stories. I think that they like the idea. I always feel very empowered when you see a lot of heads kind of shaking, whether it's a coach or a parent or a player, an athlete. But I keep it very, very direct. I try to make it be as relatable as possible. And we spend a lot of time on tight actions, takeaways, immediate takeaways to control your thoughts, to be kind of the CEO of your own performance, to take ownership of it. And I never take it from the approach of stop doing X, Y, Z. I'm always a big proponent for me of let's start doing ABC. Like, I'm not going to have to tell you to stop doing that over there. You're going to stop it yourself because we're going to spend a lot of time on your focus. So the noise might still be there, but all of a sudden your lane has become very, very narrow. So I spend a lot of time trying to have people walk out of that room in whatever role they might play in sports or business or whatever it is, understanding how empowered they are to control their next steps. And I'm a big proponent of measuring gains, not gaps. How much time do we spend celebrating the wins? I know we spend a lot of time harping on the negatives, but and I think that's a refreshing reminder for people.
Yeah. What topics do you get the most engagement around?
Confidence, focus. For younger athletes and families, it looks like maybe like a lack of aggressiveness or assertiveness. Can you help make my player, more focused? But confidence is the big one. Fear, overcoming some sort of performance anxiety, and probably translating, helping close the gap between that free-flowing feeling that so many athletes experience in practice to how can they replicate that in games, right? There's normally a miss between those two.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Let's shift gear and talk about your book series, Unshakeable. And before we wrap up, I want to take a second, Sandy, to say congratulations. Your Unshakeable 99 Rules series is now live on Amazon.
Yep. It's been, if you asked me a couple years back if I would ever be writing books, I would have, some of my friends probably would have said, I don't even know if you could read books. But I came up with this idea because I wanted to, I know for me when I was younger, I wasn't a huge reader, but I liked inspirational like nuggets, maybe there were kind of power phrases or, things about competition that I could immediately take with me. So I started writing. The first book was 99 Rules for Athletes, and you don't have to be a hockey player. This is just for athletes. That it's segmented, but you could open this book up to any page, take it with you, highlight it, put a note in the indent, and take immediate nuggets out of it. And once I wrote that, a good friend of mine was saying, like, what about us? Like, what about the parents, right? Like, you got to help us too. So I then wrote the second book, which was 99 Rules for Sports Parents, which is about so many of the things that we talked about, how to support, how to grow a confident, great human being who happens to be an athlete, right? Not the other way around. And so they're all, relatively short format. Each rule is, super, super palatable. And that just kind of grew into this place of, 99 rules. We're working on one for leadership, 99 rules for, on and on and on. Some of the biggest compliments for me, I never thought this would be the case though, is like some of my mom's friends, right? They're in their 80s and they're just like recreational golfers. And one of my mom's friends, I saw her recently and she said, I was reading your book and, rule whatever it was on this page, it's helped me in my golf game so much. And I was like, yeah, I was so proud of myself. I was so, because I
love it.
Yeah, you don't know when you put something out there, who's going to be the reader of it. So many of the rules, especially for athletes, they apply to CEOs and business leaders. So it's been crazy over the past year. We got 2 of those books out. We got a third one coming out soon. They're available on the website and on Amazon.
And they're on Kindle and paper.
Yep. Paperback and Kindle. We ship everywhere. I'll tell you a quick thing that when I do these speeches, I take a whole bunch of books. My assistant, she says, we got to start bringing books there. And I felt kind of weird. I don't want to be hawking books. Like, I feel like a used car.
It's part of the game, Sandy.
I know.
You can't avoid it.
I know. And I've welcomed it. I have a different perspective on it. And it was earlier this year when, someone bought a book and I said, oh, thank you so much. And, they handed me a pen and they said, aren't you going to sign it? And it was like a moment of terror because like, what are you supposed to write in someone's book? Like, what am I supposed to write in your book? So that was a big discussion of, what should we write? So the first time so now I just say, I'm happy to sign it. I'm not offended. If you don't want me to sign it, I'm happy to do it. So that was not a good thing for the ego. It just, at this stage in my life, I think it means a lot to know that you can have impact. If you're having impact on people and maybe helping them avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through or that others so it's been rewarding, but I had to work on my signature a little bit.
Yeah. And the writing process, was it straightforward? Was it easy, complicated?
No, it wasn't easy. It certainly putting yourself out there being evaluated and being kind of judged, which I never had a second thought about that. I just wanted to make sure that it was a good product. So finding the voice for the first one took a while. Now I'm kind of in a groove, but I have some trusted people and editors that say, "Hey, look, I think that's off base here." But when I get some of them back and they're
and do you have a favorite moment to write? Morning, afternoons, evenings?
Well, I don't do a lot of writing in the mornings, but I do a lot of writing through the day, and honestly, a lot of it came from talking to so many people all across the spectrum, and there's certain things that this person, they could live in Sweden and they're 13 years old and they play hockey. This person could live in California, they're a professional play. Like, there are similarities. They might have different depths of it. So I get inspired a lot after I maybe chat with somebody and say, "Gosh, I've heard that thing a couple times this week," or "That's popped up, in that locker room," or "That GM over there was saying that." And that's the crazy thing, that at all levels, we're just humans, and everybody is dealing with the same stuff. Everybody, so it was a vulnerable process, but I love it. Love getting feedback, and hoping to make a positive impact.
And the series is going to stop at number 3, because you said that you are on the third one, or is going to continue?
No. So yeah, we finished the third one, which is it'll be out around the holiday time this year. It's just called 99 Rules, and it's for it's not sports specific, so it's for anybody. There's just training grit, never breaking, all that stuff. So we're really looking forward to that. And then the next one will be exclusively about leadership. My goal has always been, because I travel so much for work and I love bookstores in airports. And I said, one day I want to go into an airport and say, "That's my book."
Yeah.
I feel like it would be like the perfect thing for that. You can pick it up. It's easy to read. It's not overly complicated. You feel good about it. So
I never had a positive experience at the airports trying to pick up a book. Yeah, I get frustrated and disappointed in the same time, because
you know what I've noticed? I think aesthetically they look
wow, but then you go in.
Yeah, but so I was like, because I think the covers, we kind of nailed it. And I like this format because, you could open up to any page and every single page can act independent of the previous page. Like, there's sections about certain things. But it's funny you said that, because I don't disagree, but I tried to make it so it could be like bulletproof in an airport. Anybody could pick it up and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I love it." Not like, "Well, let me scroll back and get some context."
Let's see. Maybe one day.
That's right. I'm hoping.
Yeah, fantastic. Sandy, if your work could only leave behind one rule, which one would it be?
I was asked this question last week for the first time, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I think this is the key. In the athlete book, rule number 1 is have fun. Then there's a whole bunch of descriptions about it, but that's kind of the flow. It's a rule, then maybe 8 or 9 lines, and then kind of a hard-hitting closer about it. But I think greatness, success, commitment, it all starts from the fun factor. And fun doesn't mean easy. Fun doesn't mean it doesn't have challenges. Fun doesn't mean you won't fail. But I think for so many people, we talked about burnout earlier, when we lose sight of why we even started, that's troublesome. And I think I've learned as I've gotten older, maybe a little sappier, that's such an important thing, right, in life. You want to make sure you're enjoying the moments, but that's what they are. They are moments. You have to be present. right here, right now. This moment is the most important. And what a shame it would be to start living with a whole bunch of moments that weren't enjoyable.
You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Great. Now it's time for our lightning round. Ready for speedy Q&A?
I'm ready.
Let's do this. Go to breakfast before a busy day.
I would say I'm a humongous fan of cereal.
Yeah. Favorite mental skill to train?
Focus.
What's a quote you live by?
Honesty. It's the biggest one.
Biggest misconception about mindset coaching?
That it's about you're weak and that you would need it because you're weak.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Slow down. And I would say enjoy the moment. You are where your feet are.
Sandy, how do you unwind after speaking at an event?
So we live on the beach now. We're very fortunate to live on the beach. Nothing better than being on the beach with the family and the dogs, and just realizing that whatever may have popped up that day or before, the beach doesn't care, the ocean doesn't care, the waves don't care. It makes me feel very grounded.
Right. And lastly, Sandy, one piece of advice or wisdom to our audience on any topic.
I would say that I think talent is overrated. I think that talent matters. I think talent moves needles, but I think mindset moves mountains.
Fantastic. Sandy, Cohan, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I was looking forward to this for a while.
Fantastic. And to our listeners, I leave you with a few words from the one and only coach, John Wooden. It's what you learn after you know it's all that counts. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.